The name of Marshal Joffre is used in many French cities to name boulevards, avenues, or streets. Well, I have a big problem with that. Why? Because the guy was responsible for the slaughter of tens and tens of thousands of very young men during the First World War. Many other military leaders, of course, were also responsible. But this one, with his ridiculous tactic of sending a maximum of foot soldiers to the front line, while they were, of course, slaughtered by machine guns, deserves a special place in hell. He was, in fact, called a dictator. He saw young men as mere cannon fodder. War can turn into mass killings because some people at the top, like Joffre, think that individuals don't matter, that individuals can be sacrificed for the glory of some collective entity or for the glory of themselves, the leaders. That individuals are just means to some collective ends. Well, such people despise a modern, liberal invention, individual rights to life, liberty, and property. Liberal individualism is based on the recognition of the moral superiority of individual human life, and that men have rights by nature. And that is precisely why liberals oppose war as often as possible, as it usually turns into the nastiest collectivist negation of individual rights. Now, individualism does not mean some simplistic faith that individuals live in an atomistic way. No. Individuals are social beings, and that is also precisely why they need rights. Individual rights are to be understood in relationship to others. They enable some social coordination, and as such are an essential ingredient in economic development. Think about property rights. They tell us what is mine and what is yours. But there is more. Besides this essential function, they also represent a precondition to self-flourishing. They are indeed the sphere of expression of man, a path to his or her dignity, and a prerequisite for his or her freedom and creativity that will benefit others. Then property rights give us incentives to take care of things because we want to retain or increase the value of those things that we own. Thus, property rights create a link between the present and the future in our relationship to things. They help us project ourselves into the future. I own this house and I want to maintain it for my daughters. Property rights are the very basis of the idea of investment. Property rights make us more responsible. In fact, they make us more human. Now, don't we live in a society with lots of different rights? Rights to free housing, to free healthcare, and so on. Shouldn't liberals be happy about that outcome? After all, if rights are such a good thing, why not have a maximum of them? Well, that is precisely here that liberals have a problem with the concept of rights, because they think that individual rights should not be confused with some new, fashionable other rights. Let me explain. Typically, there are 3 generations of rights. It's like a layer cake, if you will. First, civil rights. That is the right to life, freedom, which includes freedom of conscience and of religion and so on. And the right to property, which is an extension of the right to life. These are very much related to the negative concept of liberty. Not negative in the sense that it's bad, but in the sense that it is defined by an absence of coercion from others. Respecting my rights means for others only one negative obligation, not to coerce me. These rights are not granted by the government, but in order to protect these rights, we usually need government under the rule of law. And this last specification is a necessary one, as governments have been and can still be the biggest source of coercion. Now, a government under the rule of law needs to be funded, which means taxes. Of course, these taxes mean a reduction in individual rights. A tax on my salary amounts to a reduction in my property right. But such reduction is minimal and it is equally distributed. Then there are Political rights, the second generation. That is, the right to vote and the right to participate in politics. But then there is a third, new generation of rights that first emerged in the late 19th century in Germany and England. Welfare or social rights. These are very much positive benefits or entitlements. Many people think these rights are the cream on the cake, if you will. Now, why do liberals have a problem with welfare rights? Well, because we do not live in the land of Santa Claus. My right to free housing means someone will have to pay for it. You. Your right to your salary will be reduced through taxes, but a lot this time, to pay for my free housing. This means, in this case, there is a conflict of rights. My welfare right conflicts with your individual right. We're not talking about a minimal taxation just to protect the system of individual rights. We're talking about something completely different. Something that is growing with the lengthening of the list of welfare rights. Something that's getting out of control, as demonstrated by our levels of taxation, public deficits, and debts. Public debts, generously handed down to the next generations. It's like we just had a huge expensive party and left the bill to our children and grandchildren. Public debts really encapsulate this notion of conflict of rights. Our rights versus the rights of the future generations who do not have a say in this because they are not even born yet.